So, you're a business owner dedicated to the significant and sustainable growth of both you and your business. Welcome to the AddAZero Podcast.
Hi, I'm Jael from My True North. Welcome to the AddAZero Podcast. I'm delighted that you're joining with me today as we talk about, is this your last chance? Recently, less than 3 weeks ago, I walked into a client's office to be able to start our coaching sessions together, and what I was expecting was to be able to be greeted with a warm welcome and a smile, the offer of a coffee and "How are you, Jay?" And yet what I found was somebody that was slumped at his desk and feeling rather forlorn and a little bit sorry for himself. There was no smile, there was no look up, there was no offer of coffee. Something was distinctly wrong. So we closed the door and we ignored all the usual pleasantries, and I said, "What's up?" What I subsequently learnt was that in the last week or so, he'd caught up with an old colleague who was celebrating having just sold his business and retired. I said, "Well, that's great news. Congratulations, that's wonderful." And I could see immediately that my celebrating his success or his colleague's success was even more salt in a wound. I couldn't understand why, so I had to make some inquiry and determine as to what the problem was. And what I subsequently quickly learnt was that my client had been using somebody else's sale of the business as a measure of success of the journey that he'd been on. And by the very fact that an ex-colleague had subsequently sold his business and retired, was the yardstick he was measuring his competency and feeling a failure because he hadn't done the same or was in a position to be able to do so. Sound familiar? One of the first things I want to share with you today is that success is a journey, not a destination. And the risk is that at the moment we spend too much time measuring our journey against somebody else's yardstick. We are constantly making comparisons between what other people are doing and what they've achieved and what we're achieving to determine as to whether we think we are successful or not. And it's ridiculous. We got into the coaching session and I started asking questions about how you knew this chap and how long the two of you had been together. And it quickly became apparent that although the two of them had started work together, they'd been through college and uni together, they'd joined the same big corporate company as apprentices 1,000,000 years ago now and worked in that business for a while, that when the both of them got made redundant, his friend, his colleague, went off and immediately set up a business, whereas my client did a little bit of freelancing for 4 or 5 months and then determined, do you know what, I'm going to set up and run in a business also. And about 25 years ago now, within about 5 or 6 months of each other, two ex-colleagues and friends from college and uni had set up businesses and had been in touch ever since. And his friend, in a separate business, in a separate industry, in a separate sector, had fortunately had the privilege of being able to sell his business for a large sum of money and be able to not work again, to be able to pay off the mortgage and retire and start to talk about all the things that he's now able to do because he's not tied to owning a business. And my client was utilising this to be as a measure to determine, well, I'm in nowhere near a position like that yet, and I'm not sure what my business is worth or how I would go about selling it, and I've still got a mortgage and I've still got my youngest child is still going through university. There's still some additional cost in the family. Now, I'm not sure I could possibly, but it was using somebody else's life as a measure of the success and the journey that he'd been on. And that just doesn't make any sense. To me, it certainly doesn't compute at all. It actually transpires that even the two of them had gone through college and uni and joined the same company, the big corporate company together as apprentices. They'd had different jobs. They'd had different experiences. They held different professional qualifications. They'd subsequently set up businesses in different sectors and different industries, in different geographies. And yet he was still using this as a measure to say, well, if he was able to sell for a multi-7-figure sellout, and I'm not yet there, then I must be a failure. I want you to understand that the massive importance, the critical importance of being able to have a plan, to be able to determine as to what are you doing right now, well, obviously watching and listening to this podcast right now, but what are you doing in life right now, in the business, and how is that having a direct contribution towards what it is that you're trying to aim to achieve? How can you correlate the actions of today as a direct impact on what it is that you're trying to achieve? Now, I mentioned that I'm the founder of My True North, the UK's leading ethical coaching company, and we look at business through the 360 degrees of a compass. The whole reason for being called True North as opposed to North is understanding the difference between what happens externally, that magnetic impulse, and what happens internally, how we are measured and swayed by that. And the simple fact is that if you're in business today, if you're 1 degree off course from where you aimed to be, if you're not treading the track, if you've simply been swayed by some social media or an ad or a promo or the offer from a friend that, oh, this will help you to get to X, if you've stepped 1 foot out of line from where you need to be, that efficient crow, as the crow flies from A to B, if you're not on track, if you don't correct that and mitigate the risk, then you'll never get to the destination that you set out to achieve. You'll be 1 degree or 2 degrees or 3 degrees off course. And if you don't correct it now, by next year, you'll be 5 or 6 degrees off course. And in 20 years' time, he'll be selling for multi-millions and you'll be still sat there wondering as to why. We've got to have clarity on where are we going. It was Christopher Columbus, when he was navigating the world, that said you only need 3 points, 3 trigonometry points, to be able to understand anything about travel. Where have you come from? Where are you going? And where are you right now? And if you haven't got those 3 points in place, if you haven't identified where did I start my journey from? Where did I start this year? Where did I start 3, 5, 6 weeks ago? Where did I start this morning? Where's my start point? What's my end point? What am I working towards? What's the goal? What's the aspiration? What does success look like? What's the first milestones towards being able to achieve that? And am I doing activity today that's having a direct impact on being able to achieve that as the outcome? Too many people get so involved in putting out fires and simply running around like a headless chicken, trying to be able to appease anything and everything that's happening within the business, without understanding that each one of those things is taking you 1 further degree off course from the things that you really should be doing in the business. We have to be willing to become far more self-disciplined and self-critical to be able to say, and how is the actions that I'm taking right now having a direct impact on what it is that I want to achieve? So what does success look like? And what are the milestones in place to being able to do so? And whilst we might be influenced, whilst we might see benefit in being able to understand other people's journey and what are they up to and how are they doing it, that we might choose to be able to swipe and deploy some of those thoughts and ideas into our own business. Oh, I could learn from that person and then I could learn to adapt what they've done, or how do I take what they've done and enable me to be able to do it in my business. I can learn from other people, but I shouldn't be swayed by what it is that they're doing to be able to get onto their track and to head towards what they deem as success. Our job is to be able to understand what is it that I need to learn to help to accelerate my journey towards my milestones and my goals and my utopia. How do I utilize that information to make me bigger and stronger and better to be able to achieve and do so? And the risk of all of this is that we spend too much time either doing what everybody else is doing, or within our own business, but caught up doing all the other stuff that gets in the way of allowing us to be able to do the stuff that moves the business forward. We turn up in the morning, we turn on the computer, we listen to everybody else's emails and gripes and whinges and moans. The phone starts ringing, other members of staff are in the business and they start to ask questions and this and the other. And the little bit of time that you've got left to be able to do any form of business development is a Friday afternoon, well after the 5 o'clock hour, when you're shattered, you're tired, you're fed up, and you've got nothing left to give. Is that really what your business is worth? Or is that why we're still sat at a desk at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night on a Friday, wondering as to how somebody else was able to sell for multi-millions of pounds? We have to have clarity on what do I need to do on a day-to-day basis in order to be able to move the needle to where I want to be, and to allow other people to be able to influence our thoughts and ideas, to impregnate our mind and our thoughts and our thinking, but not to steer us off course. The last thing I want to quickly share with you today is understanding that it's our journey, and for every time we hit a milestone, that changes. Let me give you a quick example. When I was in college, all I wanted to do was get a job. I had little money. I was doing lots of hours of research, well before the internet. All I wanted was to be able to have a job and to be able to earn some money. And then eventually I got employment. I was so excited that instead of doing all of that time in research for no money at all as a student, that I finally got to come home with a paycheck. And within 3 months of having my first paycheck, I was already living to my means. I'd already started to spend all of the money that I was earning. That all of a sudden it was a case of, well, hang on a minute, how do I earn some more money? I needed to either have a different job or a better job, or I needed to get promoted in the role that 3 months. And I'd already moved to a new level of comfortability that determined that my original idea of success was merely a milestone. And it's exactly the same in business. We start off as a solopreneur, we go out there and we try and win some work. And before you know it, we've got some regular work. And then before you know it, we're overwhelmed with work. So we bring on somebody else into the business and now they're doing some work. And the business continues to grow and evolve and develop. And before you know it, we've got a team. I call it the accidental or incidental business owner that just continues to grow and grow and grow without any real forethought or consideration. It was just we kept winning the work and there wasn't enough of us, so we took on some more staff and we got some more resources. And before you know it, we're at a team of 5, 10, 15, 20. In this particular client's example, 22 staff. No plan. Just, we keep doing what we're doing and everyone likes it and they keep paying us and everything's happy. We're all moving in the right direction. And yet from an external perspective, you're not moving at all. You're just in this ever-decreasing cycle of whirlwind of responding to other people's requirements without any real finite direction on where are you heading? How is this contributing towards what you want to achieve? Because it's all right earning lots more money, but if the company's costing lots more money to be able to service that with more mouths to feed, with more resources, with a bigger office, with all of the things that come with a bigger business, if all you've done is you've grown the top line and the bottom line's grown along with it, you're now taking a lot more risk for about the same amount of reward. There's no success or succession planning. And we need to be able to determine as to on a day-to-day basis, not just you, but everybody else in the business, how is what we are doing right now contributing to what it is that we want to achieve? And if it's not, stop doing it. Because every time that you continue to do it, it's taking you further away from being able to move forward. If everything in life continues to get bigger, better, faster, and we're not keeping up with that, you're automatically falling behind. And just as this colleague has been able to sell out for 7-figure sum, it's perhaps because early on in life, when he first set the business up 25 years ago, he set up some direction, some absolute clarity on where are we going and how are we going to get there. Now, the beautiful thing is the fact that we were able to have a single session and to work out what the exit plan is. Now, at a point in time where he got no plan at all until his colleague a couple of weeks ago sold the business, he had no plan at all to exit the business. And yet, one of the first things I believe that as a business owner you should do is to be able to create your own exit plan. Make yourself redundant. I don't mean give yourself a P45 and best of luck to you, although that would be nice at some stage. I'm talking about how do you create the business that it continues to grow and evolve without your involvement in it? How do we create a business where other people are generating the income and other people are doing the work, and our job becomes servant leadership in order to be able to help and support them to be able to grow and evolve and develop themselves, as opposed to building a business around me, where I remain the primary fee earner and the other members of the staff, and we might have some marketing and some sales and some finance in the business, but ultimately they're keeping me in a job. And what we quickly identified between the two businesses is where one had quickly learnt how to be able to recruit other people better than him to do the fee earning work, and his job was to be able to manage the resources and enable them to go out and grow the business. The other one, the client that I met and started working with recently, had created and grown an accidental business with 22 members of staff where predominantly he was still the primary fee earner. He was the one that generated the leads. He was the one that serviced the clients. And a whole team of other people, okay, there were 2 or 3 other fee earners in the business, but ultimately the other people in the business were resources to enable them to stay busy. And if he stopped, certainly if the other 2 or 3 fee earners stopped, the whole thing came to a crashing halt. We had to be able to change the strategy in the business. We have to be able to look at how do we enable the business to earn money rather than the few key people within it to earn money. How do we enable you to be able to create your own exit plan? What does success look like? What does retirement look like at some stage in the future? Now we can start working with him to be able to move the needle away from being so reliant on his involvement on earning the money and generating the leads and servicing the key accounts, for him to become the owner of the business, the leader of the business, to be able to drive the business forward, enabling other people to step in and start to earn the income. And as a result of doing so, in 2, 3, 4 years' time, he'll be able to either dust off that plan and say, do you know what, I'm ready to carry this out and instigate my own exit and retirement, if that's what he so chooses to do so. Or, at least knowing that it's in place, he comes to work with a different level of satisfaction, knowing that at a moment's notice, should he choose to change his mind, should there be a different opportunity available, should there suddenly be a different change of attitude or health scare in the family or whatever else, that he's able to take a plan off the shelf and put it into place and to be able to exit for that 7-figure exit. It's only when we understand what the exit plan is that we can work back towards how am I contributing to that on a day-to-day basis. I think if I wanted to emphasize one thing from today's podcast, it was start with the end in mind and work back towards how are you contributing towards that every single day. I'd be interested to be able to hear your thoughts on today's podcast. So please feel free to drop me an email at podcast@mytruenorth.biz. And I'd love to be able to learn about where you are on your success journey. Until next time, God bless, take care. I'll see you soon.
That's all for this episode. As always, we really thank you for listening and welcome your comments, thoughts, and suggestions. So please do drop us a line by emailing podcast@mytruenorth.biz. And don't forget, if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button on whichever platform you're listening to this through. And tell your colleagues and business network all about who we are. You've been listening to the AddAZero Podcast, presented by Jay Allen. Brought to you in association with My True North, the UK's leading ethical coaching company.